So the next speaker is the ultra-renowned Dr. Robin Downing. Can we have an applause for her? You know, when I asked Robin, describe yourself, she said, I'm a little, and I didn't say this, she said, I'm a little old country doctor. But I can tell you that this little old country doctor is rocking because she just passed her boards on January 2015, the boards of the diplomacy of the American College of Veterinary Sports Medicine, and that deserves an applause. Excellent. She's going to talk to us about pain compliance, and what she really wants to do is that all patients get the care that they deserve and that they need.
Absolutely. Thank you, Yola. Thank you, everyone. All right, so I'm here to talk about how do we get her done. And Garrett, I have to tell you, that was like totally awesome, and you totally set a great stage for me to talk about how do we get her done. And for those of you, are any of you from another country, perhaps? Do you have a phrase in your language for get her done? Do you all know what I mean when I say get her done? What we're going to do, though, is talk about how do we get her done in the new paradigm, which means creating compliance via collaboration. In other words, our discussion with our clients can't be about coercion. It has to be about collaboration and cooperation. And one quick aside, because you mentioned the part that people go to the minimum wage worker in aisle number 6 of the big box pet store to get their nutritional advice, and they talk to Dr. Google at 2 in the morning when they're in their jammies and they've awakened in a cold sweat because they don't know what they need to do for their animal. Piece of guidance, and this is well-validated, Lori Kogan et al., Colorado State University. If we're willing to take the time to make an information prescription in addition to our medication prescription, we can actually greatly enhance our clients' ability to do the right things for the right reasons for their animals. And I would offer to anyone in the room, if you send me an email, I will happily send you the template for our information prescription, and you may adapt it to your practice in any way you would like. Okay, oops. There we go. First question, poll question. I'm going to ask you some poll questions, and then I'm going to deliver some information to you, and then I'm going to ask these same questions with a little bit of a twist. I wish it were a martini with a twist at the end, but it'll be the polling question with a twist just to see if your response changes. So first polling question, in your practice, is a body condition and a fat condition score recorded at every single visit, yes or no? Okay. I will tell you that I'm pleasantly surprised by 64%. I'm betting that some of you are fudging. And I would like to see that number bigger at the end. Next question. Is there a pain score that is recorded in the medical record at every single visit for every single pet? Every single visit for every single pet, yes or no? So I have to tell you, I'm 57 years old, and I really think this is about the coolest stuff ever. And it's completely anonymous. Okay, I'm going to tell you right now that what this tells all of us in the room is that we are losers, collectively losers, because that pain score is a critically important part of what should be in our medical record. How many of you learned cardiology by listening to no hearts except abnormal hearts? How many of you learned cardiology, auscultation, by listening only to bad hearts? How did we learn auscultation? We listened to lots of normal hearts, right? How will you know how to assess a patient and identify that they're painful? By assessing lots and lots of them who aren't. So that your hands and your eyes will become attuned to easily recognize those that are painful. So is a pain score recorded? Come on now. Next slide. Okay. Do you do a nutrition or feeding, and a medication review at every single visit? Yes or no? This is a review with the client of what they're doing and how they're doing it. Okay, it's about 60-40. And then finally, are regular weigh-ins scheduled for all patients, not just the fat ones? Regular weigh-ins. Like show up and step on the scale and we'll put it in the medical record. Ooh, interesting. 50-50. So by the end of my very brief time with you, what I hope to do is to make this 100%. Do you schedule the next appointment before the client leaves your building? Yes or no? Next appointment, no matter what it's for. Might be for a weigh-in, it might be for a pain reassessment, it might be for another vaccine, it might be for a wellness visit. Do you schedule the next appointment before they leave? Oh, I am astounded. You have just really knocked my socks off. But that number still needs to be higher, because what that tells us is we still have a significant part of the profession that isn't doing this routinely. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what we are obligated to do. We are obligated to do this as a profession, to celebrate, to protect, and to share the special love of animals, because this is an amazing relationship that we have the opportunity to participate in. We are the only medical profession on the planet, the only one, that takes care of its patients from womb. These puppies were born 20 minutes before this picture was taken by cesarean section, to tomb. We're the only ones from womb to tomb, from cradle to grave. And in my lifetime as a veterinarian, almost 30 years in practice, I've witnessed this migration of biblical proportion of pets from the backyard to the bedroom, and from the kennel to the couch, and from the bedroom to the end of the bed, and from the end of the bed to where? To the pillow. How many of you have had clients in your exam room that tell you, now first of all, don't clients sometimes tell you things you wish you could unhear? But almost on a daily basis, I wonder why I don't have a clerical collar on. But you know what? It's like Vegas. What happens in the exam room stays in the exam room. How many of you have had clients tell you that they had to get a bigger bed because there just wasn't room for everyone? How many in the room have ever dealt with a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel? Anyone? I am being punished for something I did in a previous life, because I now have Tommy, the transgendered Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, in my home. And where does Tommy sleep? Under the covers at my feet. I can't imagine how he can breathe under there. Why is this kind of thing important? Because it's important for us to understand that, as Leon Bernard, a French physician from the 15th century, long before there was germ theory, long before there were antibiotics, stated the following: medicine should be practiced as a form of friendship. Medicine should be practiced as a form of friendship. And so what does that mean for us? Well, what that means for us is that it's time for us to get serious about this concept of compliance. So let's first define our term. What does compliance mean in veterinary medicine? Compliance means our patients getting the care that we know as veterinarians they need and deserve. And these are two words that, if you take nothing away from my talk today, these are two words that I would like you to ingrain and incorporate into your vocabulary. Because the minute we take a stand as doctors and state unequivocally to our clients what that animal needs and deserves, that changes the conversation. That changes the game. That gets our clients' attention. Now, I already revealed to you, I've been in practice almost 30 years, and that means that I was educated during the time when compliance meant this. Compliance in veterinary medicine in the 80s, when I came out of veterinary school, meant asking the question, did the client do what the white coat said? And if the client didn't do what the white coat said, they were losers. If you loved your dog, you would do as I say. Well, that's fascinating. And what that meant is that we as veterinarians consistently overestimated the compliance that we achieved in our practices. Oh, completely overestimated, just like our physician colleagues. And so here's what the studies have shown, that our compliance is essentially in the toilet. I was actually one of the few speakers who was delighted that I only had to show pictures to you today, because it meant that I could dig through my archive and found the cutest animal pictures I could think of. So what do the studies tell us? Because here's where we really have to remember that we need to be data-driven doctors, and we need to follow the data, and we need to look at what the studies have told us time after time after time. First compliance study, 2003. Fast forward to 2015, we haven't moved the needle very much. So it's time for us to do what? It's time for us to recognize that doing the same things over and over is the definition of insanity. If we want a different outcome, we have to approach this from a different perspective. So what do the studies show? What do we know? We know that greater than 3/4 of veterinarians actually think they have really good compliance in their practice. And then we ask the follow-up question, have you measured it? And the answer is almost never. Here's another thing the studies tell us. Clients want our help. Clients would gladly work to do a better job, to deliver the care we know that they need, that the pet needs and deserves, if they would only get assistance from the veterinary practice. Isn't that interesting? Here's another thing the studies continue to reveal, that the single biggest obstacle to improving compliance in our practices, to improving the number of patients who actually get the care they need and deserve, is the lack of an effective recommendation. Now, please remember, those two words are together, an effective recommendation. And are there obstacles to creating and delivering an effective recommendation in veterinary medicine? You bet. And some of the obstacles are things over which we have great control. Others are things over which we have very little control, so it's important to focus on the things we can change. One of the biggest obstacles is inadequate or ineffective communication with the client. Inadequate or ineffective education of the client. Our clients have to know the why of what we recommend, or they can't possibly be invested in what we recommend. Ineffective or inadequate education and training of our team, and information overload for the client. Have any of you ever had that experience in the room where you just realize that your client's eyes have glazed over because you've done a data dump? This is a mistake that's very commonly made by new graduates and recent graduates in veterinary medicine, and often I see this too in young specialists who are fresh out of their residencies. I mean, no disrespect to the academically trained specialists in the room, but it's quite common to walk into the exam room. Now think about this. Maybe you have had this experience. I know I did early in my career. I thought I was pretty much a smarty pants, and I walk in the exam room and I vomit information on my client, and I call it client education. And this kind of overload is very, very common. Our clients' lives are busy, 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 busy. Garrett mentioned that whole phantom, you know, we used to talk about phantom limb, and now we talk about phantom phone. And it's so real. We deal with that. Another obstacle that comes up in study after study is that we as veterinarians often overestimate our clients' concerns about money. That doesn't mean that money is not important. But what it does mean is that greater than 90% of clients surveyed over and over again report that they want to know all of the things that are appropriate and right for their pet, even if they can't afford to do all those things at once. They are the ones who need to make the decision. We need to get out of the habit of x-raying their pocketbook on the way in the room. And again, follow up, follow up, follow up. Our clients state that they want partnership with the practice. They welcome the opportunity for the practice to reach out to them for follow-through to make sure that things get done. Now, I'm 57 now, and I have to make things really easy. And so for me, how I remember how I'm going to improve compliance, cooperation, and collaboration in my practice is I'm going to look at this equation that spells the word craft. How convenient. So how am I going to land on that end game of improving compliance in my practice? The first thing I'm going to do is make an effective recommendation.
And the second part of that is to create that collaborative relationship with the client and acceptance of what I have recommended. And then finally, the FT of craft is follow through. And this is critical for us to achieve the opportunity for our patients to receive the care that we know they need and deserve. This looks to me like a dental emergency. And I want to know if any of you know cats who would do this, because this is wrong. So what I want to do is I'm going to give you 5 easy steps to think about for improving compliance, cooperation, and collaboration in your practices. And then I'm going to talk about each one of them in turn and hopefully give you some ideas of how you too can implement this in your practice as soon as you get back to your life. And the first step to improving and enhancing our patients getting the care they need and deserve is for us to follow the science, for us to follow the data. We need to be data-driven doctors. And that means as the data changes, as the science changes, we need to change with it. When I teach about advanced anesthesia techniques, I remind my colleagues that ether works. But we don't use ether anymore for general anesthesia. I remind my colleagues that absence of death used to be considered an anesthetic success. And that we know a lot more now, and so this can't be our barometer. Step 2 is that we have to be willing to have the hard conversation. We have to be willing to engage the client. Step 3 is that we have to create that collaboration. After we engage, after we deliver, then we need to create that collaboration. Step 4 is we better make it easy, because if it ain't easy, it ain't getting done. That's just how life is. And then step 5 is that we need to commit to advocating on behalf of a being who cannot advocate for itself. So let's talk about these in turn. Step 1 is we've got to follow the science. We have to follow the data. And that means that we need to train, and then train some more. We have to train ourselves as veterinarians. We need to train our team members. And we need to train our clients. We need to shift our paradigm, reframe what we're doing in the exam room, and understand that we need to engage our clients as the adult learners that they are so that they can receive information that is meaningful for them. We have to make sure that we don't fail to plan for consistent delivery of recommendations. And that means that that entire team must speak with one voice. I couldn't have said it nearly as eloquently as Garrett did, that we as the veterinarian cannot be the sole source of information in our practices. It's impossible. Step 2, remember, was be willing to have the hard conversations. These are sometimes challenging conversations to have. Sometimes we have to tell our clients things they don't want to hear. And one of the things that we need to tell them often is, your dog is a big fat pig. Now, I do recommend a slightly different vocabulary than that. Your cat looks like a tick is probably not a good way to open the conversation. But to have the hard conversation is completely in alignment with 4 foundational principles of clinical bioethics. We are respecting the autonomy both of the client and of the patient. We are practicing non-maleficence. This means to do no harm. We are practicing from the principle of beneficence, which means speaking in the pet's best interest. And finally, adhering to the principle of justice, where we are delivering a consistent information to every client we see. My advocacy to you is step up, be a doctor, set the priorities for the pet, make the plan, work the plan. One of the easiest ways that we engage our client in how much rib coverage should their dog and cat have, because this is something clients can do at home, and you know that once you teach them this, they'll be doing it like 97 times a day. But this is what I teach them. If you lay your hand palm up and use the flats of your fingers against your knuckles, go ahead and do that. This is the kinesthetic part of learning. Palm up, flats of your fingers, touch your knuckles. That's too much rib coverage. Now, you can like that or not like that, but that's a fact. That's too much rib coverage. All right, palm down, make a fist. Touch your knuckles. That's Kate Moss. That's too little. That's too little rib coverage. Palm down, hand open, flats of your fingers, touch your knuckles. That's perfect. Now you have to teach your clients they can't do that down by the xiphoid because they can feel those ribs until the dog is a walking ottoman. Right behind the middle of the scapula, that's where that rib coverage test needs to be done. Teach your clients that. They may not thank you, but it'll help them do the right thing. Next on our step is creating collaboration. John happens to be a good friend of mine as well as a client. And this is what I'm talking about, is creating partnership. This has to be a collaborative process. We have to be in partnership and teamwork with the client. And this means doing a nutrition review every single time they're in the hospital. What are you feeding? How much? How often? Is there weight gain? Is there weight loss? Are they eating what you have prescribed? If not, get on the stick and have that conversation again. Sometimes clients just need to reach critical mass where they've heard the message 8 times wasn't enough, and at 9, their eyes roll back in their head and they go, oh my God, they lay on their backs, they pee on themselves, and they say, sign me up for that food. I just wanted to give you a visual. Do a medication review at every single visit, because this is good for short-term medication, long-term medication, therapeutic medication, and preventive care medication. Make sure that the refills are in alignment with your prescriptions. And again, you've got that plan, you've written that plan, you got to work that plan. Whatever you do, don't overthink this. Like, I've seen brain surgery, and this is not it. So don't overthink this. We've got to make it easy for our clients. We have to make available what we need for our patients in our hospitals. Fewer than 50% of humans who go to a doctor and get a written prescription actually fill their prescription. Fewer than 50%. Doesn't that scare you just a tiny little bit? It makes me glad that I emptied my bladder. Because if I got that statistic laid on me, I'd be like, oh my God. I want to give you something to manage obese patients. And I'll just lay it out for you. How do we get greater than 90% compliance in my practice, my little old country practice, with weight normalization? Now, note, please, that I did not say weight loss. This is about weight normalization. This is about body condition normalization. And metabolic has been a game changer in my practice for cats and dogs. So how do I achieve greater than 90% of my patients now being a 2.75 on a 5 scale? Accountability. One word, accountability. And how do we do that? Well, we do what we call Downing dollar weigh-ins. So we made funny money. It looks like Monopoly money. We made it on our printer, on green paper, and it says 5 Downing dollars on it. And if you are my client and your dog is a big fat pig and needs to come for a weigh-in so we can create accountability, here's how we do it. There are rules. There have to be rules. 1, you can't come any sooner than every 4 weeks. 2, you can't come any later than every 8 weeks. 4 to 8 week interval is reasonable. 3, you can't link a $5 Downing dollar weigh-in with any other visit. So there's 2 preventive care exams a year. That leaves 10 months that you could make an appointment. Oh, that's the other rule. Sorry. ADD, no drugs, and after lunch. Holy moly. What a combination. The last rule, you have to make an appointment and you have to actually show up. You can't just show up. So what does that mean? That means if I have clients, and I do, who take advantage of earning 5 Downing dollars with a weigh-in that's scheduled on our appointment book, they could come 10 times in a year. They could earn $50. Some of you in the room are saying, oh my God, she wastes $50 on a client in a year. Au contraire, mon frère. What happens when I get clients through my door 12 times in a year? What do you suppose happens during those Downing dollar weigh-ins? Oh, as long as I'm here, do you think you could do a pedicure? Oh, as long as I'm here, you know, he's shaking his head. Could I make an appointment to look at his ear? Oh, as long as I'm here, I need more doggy crack. Do you know what doggy crack is? Oh, some of you from out of the country don't know this. Greenie's Pill Pockets Hickory Smoke Flavor, doggy crack. Now, if you have children under 18 in the room, you'd better call it doggy candy, or your clients will get a little bit testy. So, I need a bag of food. I need. Do you suppose they spend more than that $50 in a year's time? You bet they do. But what am I doing by creating that extra traffic? They're in my door, and it's every time they're in my door, it's an opportunity for my team to do what? To bond with them, to create and generate loyalty. And you know what it really boils down to? Operant conditioning. I'm rewarding the behavior I want repeated. Now, I don't tell them that I'm manipulating them, but in my office after it's over, I have the satisfaction of knowing that my behaviorist colleagues would be very proud of me. So, last step, commit to advocacy. Our moral obligation and imperative is to advocate on behalf of beings who cannot advocate for themselves. We know because the data tells us that clients want to do the right things for their animals. We know that because the studies have shown this, that the client wants our participation and our support and our follow-through to help them do the right things. Advocacy is an active process, not a passive process. One of my favorite business gurus in the universe is Warren Bennett. And Warren Bennett has stated that managers do things right, but it's leaders who do the right things. And that's really what we need to do in our practices. We need to help our clients leave our doors not with unanswered questions, but with unquestioned answers. Because this is the relationship that we have the privilege to serve. What I'd like to do now is take you through those polling questions with a twist. Because now what I want to know is how many of you will record a body and fat condition score in your medical record at every single visit. Will you? Yes or no? Sweet. Now for the 15% who are 14% who are like, no way, you can't make me. You know, if you have a drink tonight and think about it, I think you'll come to your senses. Next question. Will you now begin to record a pain score at every single visit? Now that I've painted the analogy for you of learning how to ausculta heart. I love this big reveal thing. This is like the coolest thing. Look at that. We moved the needle a little bit. Okay, the 30% who are recalcitrant. I'm not sure what the obstacle is. I'm not sure if you think it's too hard. Here's the deal. My email is in my contact information. If you need a little coaching, it could be like AA, and I could be your sponsor. We'll call it PA, Pain Anonymous. Send me an email, and I can help you get over your reluctance. Will you perform a nutrition review and a medication review at every single visit? You personally don't have to do this. Teach your team how to do this. Oh, yeah, baby. All right, you're making me proud. I got one more minute. We got a couple more tests, a couple more, questions. So what about scheduling regular weigh-ins for all your patients, not just the fat ones? I've given you a little snippet, but I can help you with this too. Clients love this, because then you can do that add-a-girl thing, an add-a-boy thing. Oh, that's sweet. I can die now. You've made my day. And then finally, will you schedule the next appointment before they leave? Now, before you show the polling slide, hold on. How many of you have ever been to a dentist? Anyone ever been to a dentist? How many of you have a dentist like my dentist that they lock the door and they won't let me out unless I make the next appointment? You know, we as veterinarians need to remember that dentists have this locked up. So why should we not learn from them? Okay, now we can show the results. Oh, look at that. Oh, my heavens. You guys have been great. I hope that I've given you a little bit of something to think about. And thank you, Hills, and thank you to all of our colleagues who've come from so many places around the world. It's so far been a great seminar.
Good job. All right. That was an amazing lecture.